Welcome to the GOYA Gatherings podcast, a serene and inspiring space where the worlds of yoga and wellness converge. Every episode is a journey into the heart of yoga, offering you deep insights, uplifting stories, and practical wisdom. Our conversations are designed to inspire your journey and illuminate your path to well-being. Please remember that the views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of GOYA Gatherings or its hosts. We're so happy to have Andrea McHattie here today with us on the GOYA Gatherings podcast. She is a member of our leadership team, but she has so many wonderful things to offer, and we were hoping to share her experiences today and a little bit of her background and how she hopes to integrate that background with and for the GOYA community. So Andrea is a 200-hour yoga teacher, but she has a specialization in trauma-informed yoga. Her passion lies in creating adaptive yoga experiences, especially for those who might feel out of place in traditional yoga settings or folks who doubt their ability to practice yoga. And her passion extends to working with military veterans and first responders. She has 15 years of experience as a social worker, where, of course, she supported and empowered survivors of domestic violence and trauma. She is also a spouse of a military veteran living with PTSD, and that's how she came to understand the crucial role of self-care, mindfulness, and movement. And she shares that one of her earliest yoga lessons was, if you can breathe, you can practice yoga. Her goal, like all of our goals, is to provide accessible, inclusive yoga to anyone who can benefit from gentle, mindful moving and breathing. Outside of working here with GOYA, Andrea works and teaches community-based inclusive yoga classes at several studios in and around her community. And she continues to work with veterans, first responders, survivors of abuse and sexual assault at a clinic in Ontario, Canada. So we're so happy to welcome Andrea today. Welcome, Andrea. So glad to have you here on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to jump right into it because we have so many things to cover because you are doing so many wonderfully amazing things. So I think a great place to start today would be, in your experience, how have you witnessed the true transformative power of yoga in communities? And really, what inspired you to explore this aspect of yoga's impact?
Well, let me start with saying what inspired me to explore it was I came to yoga probably about 10 or 15 years ago, mostly as a seeking healing for myself. I come from a military family, and my husband lives with post-traumatic stress disorder. So it was really going through my experiences with him that I came to realize that I needed something. And so, but in that journey, I sort of was coming to realize that there just wasn't a lot for military, the family members of military. And that's what really, I would say, is my biggest inspiration for, looking to bring yoga to a community. So I worked in conjunction with my local yoga studio to create a completely free yoga program for loved ones of military members, first responders, and veterans who just needed something. They needed to come together in a safe and supportive setting, and to do, we did yoga together, and then we incorporated things like creative writing and art therapy and sound baths and stuff like that, that I believe that we brought a lot of people together who really had never done yoga before, many of whom believed that yoga just wasn't their thing, and brought them together into these very warm, safe settings and created this community just of people who loved someone who had been previously military or a first responder and was probably living with an injury as a result of their service. So, that was my inspiration. And then, so we started with this Renew program, and we've been doing that for a few years. But then also, again, because of my military connection, I've been very fortunate to have participated in originally yoga sessions at a veterans winter sports clinic. And now I actually teach them at that same clinic. And again, it's bringing these people in who initially are, oh no, yoga's not for me. It's not my thing. And bringing them together and showing them that yoga is just so much more than, what their perception may be or something they see on social media or on TV. It's about movement. It's about mindfulness. It's about breath and being together, being around people who get it. And I think that's my biggest thing with yoga in communities is gathering this group of people who are like-minded with similar experiences, and they get it. They get each other and they get the experiences that they've had.
Right. Yeah, that is amazing. That is so powerful. And I think people often think of yoga as an individual practice, which it is on some level, but this fostering of community, I think, is so important, especially in very specific communities that have trauma, that are suffering from different challenges, and really finding it, as you said, a safe space for them to congregate and to also heal at the same time. And I think that is truly amazing, because we often forget the community aspect of yoga and how healing it can be for people. So, I mean, I think you've answered. I had another question, but I think you've already answered it, which is about what role does yoga play in fostering a sense of community? And I mean, I think you've already told us that. Can you share a few examples or a story that highlight the positive changes and empowerment that yoga has brought to specific communities that you've worked with?
I think probably one of the most significant ones has been through working with specifically. I have most of the people that have come to the Renew sessions that we do for loved ones have been spouses who, for various reasons, their loved one has an injury. And the loved one becomes that caregiver, and they feel responsible, and they have to. And so when we were able to sort of gather these women and men together, I think I remember one of them being, it just kind of hit me that they were just so in awe of the fact that they weren't alone. And when your loved one lives with especially a mental health issue, you can feel so incredibly alone. You feel like nobody else gets it. There's nobody I can talk to about it. And I remember bringing them all together. I think it was the first session, and just watching these people just connect and talking and just feeling so comfortable because they were actually there with other people who got it, but then also left knowing that they weren't alone. They weren't alone in dealing with, some of the effects of their loved one's injury, and they connect beyond that, and they go out for lunch together, and they go socialize together. And so I felt so good when that happened, because my whole point behind it wasn't so much let's get together and teach yoga, but rather it was, let's create a community that can go beyond the mat, that they can be there for each other. And the truth is, when you're a caregiver, you forget to take care of yourself. You don't take care of yourself, and you can't take care of someone else unless you're taking care of yourself. I mean, we all know that, and yet we stop taking care of ourselves, and we think that, we can't leave that person because they're just going to fall apart without us. But the truth is, we can, in a lot of cases, we can go for 1 or 2 hours and just be around people who get it and not feel alone in it anymore. And watching that sort of like that aha moment for them when they're kind of looking around and we were in a yoga studio at the time, and realizing that there were 15 other people that that are living with something similar to what that in and of itself is empowering, because when there are others living what you live with, then it gives you that strength to go, okay. And then they can support each other, because one person's strength is another one's weakness. So we
Yes,
can,
absolutely.
help each other out. So I think that, there's just something so powerful in coming together with others. Yeah. And this community creates this sense of inclusivity where people of any age or background or abilities can come together and then create that sense of belonging.
Right.
Because
And
I think you can.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
It just, when you belong to something, because it can just be so isolating, and I've experienced that myself, and I know other people who have, that once you realize that, oh my God, I belong to something, I can be a part of this, it just creates that sense of, I can do this, and I can heal myself, and I can help heal somebody else as well.
Right. And I think that's so important, especially about the caregiver role, that I think people often don't realize until you're in that role, is there's so much guilt associated with it often, in that if you're not doing it all day, every day, and you're doing something for yourself, that there's a feeling of guilt associated with it, which is completely wrong. Yet as humans, we take that on, I think. And I think it's wonderful, like, to be able to realize that, yes, I can take that hour out of my Friday and connect with these other folks, that we can just, talk and enjoy each other's company and maybe help one another. And sometimes it's just to be in that space energetically, I think, too, makes a huge difference, because you're outside of that ongoing environment of always, I call it being on. Like, you always have to be on. You always have to be aware,
absolutely.
And that can be so depleting energy wise, physically and emotionally, that I think we as humans think that we're supposed to do this, but it's really not beneficial to anyone, because when we're depleting ourselves of all of that, we're really not being of use, I think, at some point. We just, have you experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. I've personally experienced it, and I've seen it in, some of my peers, that we just wear ourselves down to the point where we almost start to come apart, and having opportunities to, to go out, and I know for me, I early in, my journey with post-traumatic stress, you can go to support groups, and those are great, but to me, there's so much power and and inspiration to be attained from just going and doing social activities, whether that's, going to a yoga class, or going to, an art therapy class, or a sound bath. That you don't have to sit and talk about everything that's going wrong in your life. You can just be there with someone who, they're dealing with the same stuff that you're dealing with, but that you can just go and just be yourself. And that was one of my real motivators when I created this Renew program. Was a lot of times when you are a caregiver, you really begin to identify yourself by your loved one's injury or condition. And so, and you completely lose that person you were before everything went sideways. And so the whole point of the Renew was not to bring together a group of people so that we could all talk about how difficult our lives are, but rather to bring this group of people together and maybe even help them reconnect with that person they were before things happened. Because they're still that person, but it's just gotten pushed aside while they take care of everything. And so helping them reconnect with that, and that there's support in camaraderie, I guess or in community. It's just that knowing someone else is there and they've got you. And the other big motivator for me was, is there can be real barriers for people to explore yoga and mindfulness. Financially, there can be at times. And especially when you're in the military community or in the first responder community, or even, lower income brackets, that it just isn't within their financial ability. And so I was absolutely adamant about the fact that anything that we did had to be absolutely free. And that finances shouldn't be a barrier in anything that I want to create in the community. And I think that really helped a lot, because and especially today, in the last few years, finances are just becoming more and more challenging for people. And so, when you're having to, pay rent and groceries and all the things that just day-to-day life brings, that idea of spending money on yourself to take care of yourself, well, that's just the bottom of the list. And so having these things that are available to people who just otherwise wouldn't be able to do it, I think that's my passion.
And I'm so glad you brought up, especially, I mean, we can talk about all kinds of barriers, but financial, I think, is one that can resonate with almost everybody on the planet. Being able to pick and choose what we can and cannot do based on finances, which is, as you know, and I know, is also part of the GOYA community, in that we don't want to have barriers, and no one should have to, how would I say it? No one should have to explain why they can't. Part of something, because I think that in itself is another trauma, right? Not being able to, for whatever the situation is, but having the accessibility. And I mean, I've always said, if we could have everything be completely free, that would be my dream and my goal. It's not super realistic.
No,
but that doesn't mean that we can't cater to part of the community that really is struggling and that really needs that assistance, and without having a 20-page questionnaire on why you can't, because there's some dignity involved here as well. I think
absolutely
forget that, and I think we associate what we can't do with a loss of dignity. And physically,
sure.
Financially, other which ways. And to me, that has always been, when I've seen some of the questionnaires that I've seen other organizations pose to people, I often think, well, that's very specific and that's very discouraging, because who wants to list, every grocery item they purchased this month just so that they could qualify for that extra $20 in financial help, right? So I think maintaining dignity is really critical. And I think clearly you've done it a wonderful way where people are welcome. You've used other resources in the community that can help you, whether it's local studios or community organizations, and allowing those organizations that have the resources to complement the allowance for these communities to be created and not have that financial burden transfer, which I think is so critical. And we're talking about often small communities, right? Are we talking about remote communities that often have even greater struggles?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, I was reading some stuff in preparation for this, and the one thing that really sort of resonated with me was that, in essence, yoga is about cultivating compassion. And so as practitioners of yoga, I feel like I feel that it's my responsibility to sort of cultivate that and bring it to individuals who desperately need it and who also would otherwise not have access to it, whether it's financial access or just their perception of yoga is so different than what we really have to offer them. And so giving the, I say to so many people, like, if you can breathe, you can do yoga.
Yeah.
And I currently work one-on-one with veterans and first responders at a trauma clinic here in Scranton. And each one of them is so completely different in what they need and what they want and what they want to do. And so, I have one man who comes for yoga nidra once a week, and that's what we do. He just comes in, he lays down on cushions, and we do a 1-hour yoga nidra. I have another man who just wants to come and do breath work, so we just do breath work. And it's just there's something in yoga for everybody, I think, and that's
Right.
kind of what I'm always saying to people is that let me show you the different things you can do. It's not about getting onto a mat and doing necessarily all these postures, but rather it's about reconnecting the body and the mind and getting back to that place of peacefulness.
Right. And I think it comes down to education and information that's accurate and concise. And I think that's why we here together collectively at GOYA have come together, because we all have this desire to make sure that the information people are receiving is accurate and informative and constructive, because we all know that there are so many wonderfully glamorous things that yoga marketing does, and that isn't what it's about, and definitely not for us. I don't believe it's for us. That's not what it's about. It's really about cultivating community, cultivating accessibility, ensuring adaptability for people, and inclusivity, because I think yoga, ironically, in the Western world, misses those 4 key things. And that's the sad part of it. I mean, I know in our local studios here, I mean, when the average monthly fee is as much as your car payment, people will still do it because they think, oh, this is trendy and on point, but that isn't what it's about, right? And yes, studios do have to survive, and I can appreciate that, but there's just got to be a better way that we can build community and inclusivity and adaptability and all these things without the barriers to access. And ultimately it is a barrier to access. And if people already have a preconceived notion about what yoga is or what yoga isn't, that's a challenge. And often it just like you said, it takes one small session for someone to realize, oh, I had no idea that I could just lay in yoga nidra for an hour, and this is what yoga is. And I think when people try to define yoga, it's all encompassing, really. And I think it shouldn't be anything so specific, because yoga is so many things for so many people, and it's not. I often say it's not doing yoga; it's just being yoga. Like everything is being in that moment, whatever state you're in. You are in that yogic state at that time. You don't have to be all zen and all, you know what I'm getting at, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I always say to people, like, it's not about necessarily having a completely clear mind. It's not about turning off every thought that's in your mind or being in complete silence. It's just being in that moment and recognizing everything that's going on. When I did my very first meditation training, we were upstairs from a daycare center that and we were trying to do meditation when it was pickup time at the daycare center. And that was probably one of my greatest lessons, was that it didn't have to be completely silent. It could be, all this noise, but I'm being mindful of the noise. I'm hearing the noise. And so I try to share that with my students as well. And it's not about being in complete silence. It's about hearing those noises and not attaching to them, just acknowledging them, and then carrying on with what you're doing with your breath and that sort of thing. So it's
right.
it's neat though when they kind of realize it and they kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, no, that worked for me, and I feel good when I do that, because I feel like, okay, I've changed somebody's mind and opened them up a little bit.
And it's a rippling effect. I mean, you think you spent an hour with that particular individual, but they now go on and share that experience with others, and everything is just a ripple effect. And it's so important, especially I feel at this time on our planet, in this world, in the crises we see all over the globe, that if we could just spread a little bit of that every day, there would be a chain reaction. And things could only become better if we're all a little more conscious and a little bit more compassionate and a little bit more empathetic to our fellow humans, especially never truly understanding what another individual is going through, because one can never put themselves completely in another's shoes. And we don't know what factors have contributed to an individual's experience. So I think it's just so critical just to accept what is in that moment and just take what we can from it and share that and continue to, I mean, it's just so amazing that, I mean, you've tapped into this particular community, but of course that spreads out quickly, right? You soon meet other people that want to have that same experience. Now, I know you're involved in a number of things within your community, but what sort of initiatives or projects have you been involved in to showcase this influence on a broader scale over your your career, if I can say, in yoga and working with individuals?
Well, I think one of the sort of the larger initiatives that I'm pretty proud to have been a part of is this Veterans Winter Sports Clinic, which brings together veterans and their caregivers for a week of skiing and trying all kinds of things that they've never tried before, including yoga. And so being a part of that, both bringing yoga to it, but also bringing the Renew event to it as well, as a one time in the week, where we're able to gather together participants and volunteers and caregivers and visiting VIPs who come because they're sponsors or donors and stuff like that. And sharing that with them has been pretty amazing. And I think we have really reached a lot of people to kind of take it beyond that. I've also been very, very privileged to have been a part of a program called Passive Courage, which is it's a retreat that is run down in Prince Edward County by the Quinte Sexual Assault Crisis Center. And so once a month, they have a group of survivors who come together for, I believe it's 5 days, and do a lot of sort of group work and therapy and just being out in nature, because it's on this beautiful property down on the water. And I have been invited by my original yoga teacher to be a part of that. And so we go down and we do a session with the participants there. And again, the times when I've gone down there, I've sort of walked into the room and had at least one person say to me, well, I can't do yoga. Right. And so, and so we say, well, you know what? I mean, why don't you just, you can either get down on the mat if they feel comfortable doing that, or why don't you sit in the chair and we're just going to go through some breath work and that sort of thing. And I remember one woman, and she had no interest in yoga, and she was only there because she was told she had to be. And she made that very clear to me right from the start. And then I also wanted to know if she could eat her Kit Kat bar while we did yoga. But so I said, no, you do whatever feels right for you. You do that. And at one point in our yoga, we were doing child's pose, and so I talked a lot about child's pose, and she went into child's pose, and I had said, and you're welcome to stay in child's poses as long as you feel that you would like to, and she remained in child's pose for the rest of the yoga session, which was probably about another 30 minutes. And then even afterwards, and all these people were jumping up and running over to her, going, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And she was like, "No, I'm good. I'm just going to keep doing this because it feels really good." And so I felt like, oh my God, that was, that was my success of the day, was that I had actually, she didn't want to do it. She was only doing it because she had to. But I was able to reach her, and I was able to show her this tool that's available to her at any time that she wants it or needs it, that she's welcome to do that. So, it's those little things that you get to be a part of, or that you witness, that are, to me, the most inspiring and the most motivating. And it just makes me want to do it more.
And I think, in my experience as well, it's pretty magical when those things happen and you see them happening right in front of you. And, it's almost a little bit selfish. I sometimes think on my part, I think, oh, that's so great. And, because it also makes you feel wonderful. But I mean, it's just, there is a magical, it's like an aha moment, and you see it in people as teachers or as caregivers, as community advocates. You see it when you've reached that person, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a massive event. It can just be something so small they can take away from that moment, and it will have affected how they move forward. Absolutely.
No, I really believe that. And I volunteer with an organization called Community Visions, and they work with adults who live with a cognitive disability. Some of them live with autism. And so I volunteer for them mostly just on a social level, because they have picnics and gatherings and client parties and stuff. And so I'll go and I'll do crafts with them, and so one year they were doing a picnic, and they asked if I would do chair yoga with the people coming to the picnic. And I said, oh, absolutely. So, and I knew that in addition to any, sort of cognitive or developmental impairments they had, a lot of them had physical disabilities as well. So we thought chair, and I thought, well, I'm just going to do a breath exercise. I'm going to show them mindful movement to pair it with breath. And so we started doing it, and I had about 15 or 20 people, and we were just out in the middle of this park in chairs doing breath work. And I know in my mind at the time that I was doing it, I thought, oh my God, they're so not enjoying it. Like I kind of just looked a little bit like confused. And then meanwhile, there was a band setting up. And once the band was ready to go, they were all ready to go dancing. So they all just kind of took off, and I thought, oh, we tried it, and oh well. And well, then I was doing a craft at their Christmas party about 3 months later, and I had 3 people like come up to me and go, "Are we doing yoga today? Can we do some yoga today?"
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, and so anytime I have that opportunity to work with them and just do that little bit of breath work, because especially in this population, this group of people often feel they have so little control over their own lives, their own well-being. Other people are deciding things for them, or other people are arranging things for them. And having that little bit of breath work that they can take and use when they're feeling out of control, when they feel very anxious and upset about something, and just, breathing in for 5 and breathing out for 5. And it really helps them a lot. And they've shared that with me. And so that, that motivates me. That just makes me want to do it more. So,
yeah, because sometimes when you feel you're not making a difference, you have no idea that you are. And I think that's why we do what we do. And I mean, I think that wraps up kind of nicely what we're talking about today, and how, you came to be part of GOYA as well. And I had met you, I don't know how many years ago it was now, a few years ago, only electronically.
2020, I think.
2020, when I was going through my own crises. And I just remembered receiving that email from you when you were considering yoga teacher trainings. And I just instinctively, I just knew there was something different and unique about you. And I had always felt that. And so when GOYA came to be, I thought, who are we considering to be the guide group, I guess, of the community? And you came to the forefront of my mind. And I thought, I didn't know a whole lot, but I knew enough to know that you were a person who was passionate about making a difference, and you could help this community grow, and you'd have visions for how this community could flourish using your experiences. So I feel like there are no accidents, and that we've come together for a very good reason. And that, within the role that we're still sort of, working through what all the roles are at GOYA, as we're fairly new. But what would your hope be to see how this community grows and flourishes, and how you can bring what your, training and experience has brought to others in smaller communities to a more of a global scale?
I think for me, what I would love to see, and I would love to encourage, is bringing yoga to a community is really very simple. It doesn't take a whole lot to make something happen. And when I started the Renew program, that was as simple as I knew there was a need, and it was a need for me personally, but I knew there was a need in my community. And so I thought, well, the best place to start is at my local studio, who, they were a military family as well. And they have always, they're very good friends of mine, but they have always inspired me because, he was retired military, she was a retired teacher. They did not open their studio, to even really create an income stream, but rather to create a community. And so that, I think they kind of laid the groundwork for me. But I mean, as yoga teachers, we want to earn a living. And I certainly don't, want to imply that everybody should be giving their yoga away for free, because that's not the case. But I do think that, in addition to, if you are able to, teach yoga and earn a living from it, that's great. But even every once in a while, taking yoga into the community and bringing it to people who really need it, and who, for various reasons, probably wouldn't be able to experience it. And, just before Christmas, I wanted to do some yoga, more to get a gauge on sort of how many people in my community actually wanted to come and do yoga with me. But, and I thought, well, the easy way to do it is let's do a gift drive for the local women's shelter. And I just put it out to the masses on social media and just said, I'm going to do this. Here are 2 dates that I've got this free studio space, because a lot of places will give you free space if you say you're doing it for, a cause. And, I want to do these 2 sessions, and, there's no cost to come to the session. But if you would like to bring a gift to contribute to the Christmas program at Three Oaks Women's Shelter, we would be very grateful. That really didn't take a lot on my part to bring together. So there are these little things that you can do in, no matter what community you live in, where you can bring this to people, or, reaching out to a local organization who works with adults with, developmental or physical disabilities, and say, I would love to come and teach a class and teach breath work or teach mindfulness. I think that's kind of what my goal in all this is just showing people that there are ways that we can bring yoga to community, but also, create that connection that is really, it's essential for our own well-being. But it also helps us to be more compassionate and inspiring to other people. And so I think if I had to say that was something I really, really would love to happen through my role with GOYA is to inspire people to just do some things in their community with their yoga skills, because that's really truly what yoga is about. It's that sharing of, it's, service to self, service to others, and service to community. So how can we use our yoga training and our mindfulness training and share it with other people that, at one point, somebody told me that their peacefulness and their calm, they keep it, but the only way they keep it is by giving it away.
Right.
And so,
wow. Yeah.
And so it's that sharing it with other people that, like you said a few moments ago, it's a selfish thing too. When I volunteer for, community visions, or I volunteer at the Winter Sports Clinic, I'm doing it to help the event and the people that they're helping, but I'm also doing it for myself, because there's really something that you get at the end of it all, or even during it, when you see people enjoying it, when you see somebody, at the Winter Sports Clinic, I always say it's my greatest compliment if somebody falls asleep at the end of my yoga class, because these are people who literally don't sleep, and so,
Yeah.
they'll apologize to me at the end, and I'm like, oh no, I feel great that you fell asleep. I love that, because you really need some calmness and peace. And if I can get you to that place that you can actually let go and relax, then, I'm the happiest person ever. So.
And there's that cliche that in giving you are receiving, and it's,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't even call it a cliche. It is a fact. And if you've experienced giving without any expectation of receiving, you receive so much more than you can possibly imagine. And I think as we build out GOYA and we build out, what this looks like, having your input here to assist people with being able to bring these types of things to their communities, really laying out clear instruction and direction for people on where to begin. Because I think often people taking that first step is a little bit frightening, walking into their local studio saying, well, could I use your studio for 2 hours for completely free?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Challenge. But the reality is if we don't ask, if we don't try, nothing will change, and it changes nothing. So I think we are the front line of change in the world. I know that sounds so absurdly large when I say it, but the reality is just that. We don't need weapons. We don't need marginalizing other people. We don't need those. What we need is compassion, community, empathy, advocacy, accessibility, all these things that really come together and are what yoga is. And I think as we grow and as we build and as we change, also getting input from our community is really important, our membership community, because so many of them have wonderful experiences or access to things that others may not, and we can help one another.
Absolutely.
My dream has always been to have a wonderful yearly community event where we could invite just about anybody who wants to come to something where there's no cost involved, where it's all about where if you give something, you'll receive something. So everybody brings it's like a potluck for yoga, right? You bring something to the table, and we all will it will resonate with this community, and that vibration then will continue to resonate outside of that community. And I think what people don't often realize is, no matter how small a gesture is, that gesture does matter, and it does make a difference. And we as yoga educators, that's our goal, to bring that to the community. It's not just about, being trendy or being on point, or you can do all those things as well. That's perfectly great for individuals that wish to have that. But really the essence of giving, not in order to receive, but just to give without expectation of receiving is really important, I think. And you will get so much more back. I don't know how to explain it any more simply, but I think what you've done is truly amazing. Building this from nothing effectively, and showing folks that it can be done. And now we're trying to take it to a bit of a larger scale, because we have tools like the internet, like social media, like our membership base, where we can actually reach so many more people than we could ever have by walking into our local community center, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, the amount of impact we can have is so much greater, so much more quickly than doing it right there and then on the ground, which doesn't negate doing it on the ground. If you have that capacity and that capability, that is amazing. But I mean, this way we can actually we can get the movement out there so much more quickly. And I think, as you can tell, once I start rambling, that means I'm passionate about it.
Yes, me too, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, thank you for coming with us on this journey and having faith in the rest of us here. And thank you for what you've done within your community. I think it's exceptional, and I think there's only wonderful and great things ahead for our communities that have us ensuring that we're bringing these programs, these initiatives, and making just a change in someone's life, that little change. When someone says, when you walk by someone and you smile at them, you might not think that made a difference, but it does make a difference. It does. And you have no idea if someone has smiled at that person in the past week, or do they have some other human connection? Often, you often see seniors and you wonder, do they have any human connection outside of going to the grocery store or, and so it's just little things, and it doesn't have to be on a mat. It can be in so many other variations, right?
Yes, no, I completely agree. And I could not feel more honored and privileged to even be a part of this, because it's just so amazing to be a part of a community that think the way I do, right. And no matter what community we are in, whether it's a physical community or, an online community, I mean, they are so rich in resources and stuff, like things that, you don't even necessarily know about until you ask. And when you can, come together collectively and sort of tap into all those resources, it's just amazing the things that can happen, whether they're small scale or large scale. And I was as amazed as anybody else when I decided to do this Renew thing, and first of all, I had no idea where I was even going to start. And I had many conversations with people, and it just seemed so big. And so, oh God, how was I going to do that? And then I thought, no, just take it just one thing at a time, and just start here. And it's either going to happen or it's not. And it just amazed me that everybody that we approached to say, we want to do this for, this group of people, we're just like, absolutely, I'm in. You tell me what you need me to do. And so it really can be quite simple, but I understand how daunting it feels and how scary it feels. And
Right.
I would absolutely support anybody in if they wanted to create something in the community, whatever it looks like, is, to say, how can I help? And,
Right. And
just be that
that's
support.
yeah, and I think that's a great thing. You just volunteered yourself for a new job duty. So people out there in the community listening, I mean, all of us on the GOYA Leadership Team are accessible to everybody. We don't filter anything. So if people have questions for Andrea, just pop us an email. Andrea will read that email. She will see it. She will respond. But I think that's great. I think we leave it there for today. But there's just so much that we can do. Let's not focus on what we can't do, right?
Exactly.
And let's give it a try. I often say to people, or I think I posted something on social media recently about saying, why not try something new? I can't remember exactly.
Don't be afraid to suck at something new or something.
Yeah, don't be afraid to suck at something new, right?
Yes.
Because I'm an advocate for always starting new things weekly, usually. Yes. And most of the team are horrified. We're like, where have you come up with this idea? But why not, right? Why not?
Oh, I know.
Is it might just not work. If it doesn't work, that's okay. There's something else, right? So let's use the tools we can and bring this to the community. So looking forward to everything we're going to do together in the next little while. And so grateful to have you on today. So thanks so much, Andrea.
Well, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm so grateful to be a part of this, and I am excited for this movement that we will, as a community, create.
Wonderful. Thanks.